Hello and welcome to an update on what's going on here at Alchemy Wizard. I've been working with the G2 fiber infrared laser, and it's changed a lot of things with making nanoparticles. It's really an amazing tool for creating nanoparticles, but it's also has required a whole new level of understanding nanoparticles in order to get these nanoparticles stable and to reduce the amount of material that's being wasted because the infrared laser just gouges out the metal. I mean, the core idea here is minimal amount of material and minimal amount of time. Let's face it, the blue laser takes hours to make a substantial amount of nanoparticles. With the infrared laser, I can make 500 milliliters in 10 to 20 minutes, but at great cost of material. So tweaking the settings on the laser have been a chore for me, and learning about nanoparticles, balancing stability, because now that we're cooking it to a higher concentration, we introduce stability problems. At 20 parts per million, you're not going to get a whole lot of stability problems. But now when you're doing 100 parts per million, you got to watch for, the material is getting really dense, and there's not a lot of room between particles, and so they can start to crash together. There's electrostatic field between the nanoparticles that keeps them separate, can squeeze together and start crashing together, and they could start turning into larger particles. And then when you find out you get some sediment coming out every now and then. So that's a danger with high concentrated nanoparticles. And I do know that by reducing the concentration, we create stable particles. This is why I'm shipping my nanoparticles at 30 parts per million. But I am testing high concentrated solutions of nanoparticles in nasal spray. This is Electrum at 110 parts per million. And I wanted to see, is taking a nasal spray better than taking a teaspoon in the morning or a teaspoon in the afternoon or whatever it is that I wind up taking. Sometimes I take a tablespoon. So I'm still working on this. I mean, I also sent out high concentrations of gold to a couple testers. And I got reports from one tester this morning, and he said that the gold in a nasal spray seemed to help him throughout the day when he needed a little bit of a boost. Gold is probably the most noticeable physical effect nanoparticle that there is. Really, you do gold and all of a sudden your mind expands and opens up and the inflammation drops in your body. So, I mean, gold is a really good one to test with high concentration as opposed to lower concentration with the teaspoon. But I'm doing the same thing with Electrum. This is 110 parts per million Electrum, and I'm doing the same thing. And so far, I've come to the same conclusion that this tester has come to. The high concentration nasal spray helps sustain the levels during the day, but we still require that teaspoon or tablespoon in the morning at 30 parts per million. And it may have something to do with the digestive process and where the nanoparticles wind up in the body, as opposed to using a nasal spray where they go directly into bloodstream, or when they go into the digestion where they're sent other places that maybe nasal spray can't get. So more testing is needed on those two things, and of course we need the stability issue of high concentrated stuff. But Electrum is fairly stable at high concentrations, and gold is fairly stable at high concentrations as well. So those two are really good for testing. Other stuff is not so good at high concentrations. In this beaker here, I got zinc. I'm working on zinc, as you know, is tough to make stable. Even low voltage electrolysis zinc, plasma arc zinc, all of them have problems creating stable zinc. Now I'm working on this to, the main way I stabilize zinc is I mix it right away with silver. I create a 50-50 mix of silver and zinc. I will cook the silver. I got the silver right here. This is over 100, probably 150 parts per million silver. See, this is the light brownish color to it. So it's really potent, and what I'm using this for is mixing it down to 20 and 30 parts per million silver, as opposed to having to cook it at 20 or 30 parts per million, and then it's just a lot easier. This cooks fast within 20 minutes. I'll get 100 parts per million silver out of here, and then I just mix it down, and it's fairly stable in this concentration. And I need 100 parts per million silver for my wound repair, which goes into a topical mix with copper and a few other things that I toss in there. Zinc by itself destabilizes, but if you mix it with 50-50 silver, especially right after you cooked it, it stabilizes with the silver, stabilizes it, and we get our 50-50 mix. But I still want to try to create stable zinc on its own, basically, for the few times where I need just zinc. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little things here and there, but that's a researcher. What can I tell you? I'm always trying to push the boundaries. So this latest batch here of stuff, of zinc, comes in at about 30 or 40 parts per million. Pretty stable. I did have to add a small amount of about 1 or 2 milliliters of silver in there, plus sodium citrate and some silicone to stabilize the mix. The thing that happens here is the pH goes really high with the zinc, goes up to 9, but it drops then after about 8 hours. So that's what I'm testing again. I want to see if I get this drop in pH in the zinc, because with high pH, it really isn't fantastic for drinking, especially, a little bit's not going to hurt you. But as soon as I put in some citric acid to lower the pH on the zinc, the nanoparticles kind of break apart. So if I can get this to come down naturally from when it's done at 8.5, 9.0 pH and come down to 7 like I did in the last batch, that's a win. That's a win that gives me stable zinc and maybe another step closer to understanding nanoparticles and creating stable structures with them. Because ultimately, these guys are just fantastic sort of stuff. Where's my, hold on. Turn the other way. I call this stuff ultra nano. This is something else I'm working on. This is a combination of electrum, forever serum. Forever serum contains 20 different nanoparticles. And nitro. Nitro is a high concentration of gold, platinum, and titanium. And some of my customers, they'll buy electrum, they'll buy nitro, and they'll buy forever. And they'll take that daily. And what I want to see is, can we mix it all together and have a one-dose solution? It's does it matter? Well, I want to see if it matters. But to me, mixing 3 things in the morning is just, I'd rather just pour this into my little shot glass and take my morning stuff in, one dose, instead of having to put 3 different, 3 teaspoons or tablespoons, whatever it is that we're taking, into one and down the hatch. To me, it's a lot easier doing it that way. And I think maybe it might be easier for other people too. So I'm experimenting with that. That's something else I'm experimenting. The problem I'm having with this stuff is it's not the same. Now, I can take the same ingredients, the amounts, mix them all together, figure out what the amounts are, mix them together, and create this solution, which should be theoretically the same as taking all three of them, mixing the three together. But it's not. I don't know if the amount is off that I'm taking, and probably is, because I'm leaning towards the same amount that I take every single day, where, we're looking at 3 times the amount of stuff, so I should be taking 3 times the amount. But anyway, I think one of the problems is the concentration. And being I can now cook titanium, platinum, and gold to a higher concentration, I'm experimenting with ultra nano and putting the higher concentrations in here rather than the normal 30 parts per million, and see if that solves the problem of why there's a difference between mixing them together or not. That's still something else that I'm working on, and I haven't I sent this out to one tester, and I haven't heard any results back yet. But that formula I sent out to that tester, I'm not exactly happy with. I want to increase the platinum, titanium, and gold like I have in this particular batch here. So I don't know if I'm going to get a positive feedback from that tester on that ultra nano that I sent out. But I'll see. So just a brief on what's going on here at Alchemy Wizard. And every day is a new learning and a new experience. And I have to dive into the books with the AI on learning nanoparticles and frequencies and energy and how to stabilize these things and create the ultimate nanoparticle solutions. And that's really the goal here, is to make fantastic nanoparticle solutions that are stable, make potent, positive changes in the body, and just make life really, really great. To be honest, I'm calling my nanoparticles magic in a bottle, and I am planning a video on nanoparticles, calling it magic in the bottle. If I get my butt together and get the outline done and all the other things that have to go with making an official video. So maybe we'll see that in the future if I get motivated. But I figured it's been so while since I had a show. Let me just do something off the cuff, really quick. Tell you guys what's going on so you don't think I fell off the face of the earth. Nope. Life continues here at Alchemy Wizard. I keep moving forward and try learning and growing and passing on everything that I've learned to all of you. Have a great day, wizards. I will talk to all of you later.